Hi, I'm Brad Rollins. This is for my wfed lesson. Good morning. Today we're going to have a lesson about table saw safety. The objective of this lesson is going to be to familiarize students with all safety precautions involving using a shop table saw. After this lesson, you guys should be able to rip and use the table saw following all safety precautions mentioned. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is look at some of the safety stuff on this saw. The big one is the guard, right? If we flip that up, the guard comes up. We're always going to be using the guard. This is a saw stop. I think we all know the whole hot dog video where it can't cut you, but one big thing is that we can't become complacent with this. You got to use it just as a regular saw. We got to make sure that everything is free of debris. We don't have anything in our way, no cords to trip on. So when you come up to the saw, it should always be unplugged, and the blade should always be down. This is a push stick. I don't really like putting your tape measure against that blade in the fence to try and measure how far it is. I'd rather you guys use the table. It is calibrated and it will work. The problem with putting the tape measure against the blade is that it can complete the circuit and make the break of the saw stop pop, right? As you rip stuff and then you turn the saw off, the brake continues to work maybe a second or two after the blade stops. So what in the past you may have typically done is grab your tape measure and measure from the fence to the blade. But for that 1 second that the brake is still going to be engaged, it could pop. So I'd rather everybody just use this. All right. Right here is where the blade comes up and down. Nice and smooth. All right. This kind of plug, so you're putting it in, turning it clockwise 1/4 turn. All right, so I am going to first check the depth with a piece of wood while the saw is unplugged. Putting it up here. We want the bottom of the gullet, which is the in between the teeth, to be about at the top of the piece of wood. It's going to put the blade about 3/8 above the piece. All right, so we're set there. I'm going to rip this, say, at 3 inches. Plug it in. One big thing, you got to stand to the side. In case of kickback here, where the piece gets bound up on the blade, it's going to shoot back this way. We want to kind of stand off to the side, not directly behind it. You're going to have your push stick ready right here. Once you plug this saw in, you're flipping this switch on. As it blinks red, it means it's calibrating the brake and everything's getting ready. Once it's solid green, all you do is pull this up and the saw will run. Big paddle stop. If anything happens, you're just hitting here and it's stopping. Another thing to keep in mind, we have a dust collector here. It is on a separate switch, so before you come over here and turn on the table saw, be sure to flip that on. I'm not going to turn it on for the video. You guys get the idea. All right, so I'm going to take this piece and rip it to 3 inches. So I'm going to turn on the table saw. never try and reach over to grab that piece like that. If it's a short piece, it's going to be held up right there. If it's a longer one, we have the rollers that'll be able to catch it for you. So just like this, you're going to walk around, grab that piece. Another thing is to make sure you don't have anything dangling, long hair, jewelry. So that's how we're going to rip pieces. If we're ripping pieces that are longer than, say, 8 or 10 feet, we'll get another guy to help you on the other end. I just want to show you one other way, is the miter gauge. So when you're using the miter gauge, you only use either the miter gauge or the fence. It's not both at the same time. When you're using the miter gauge, you're putting a piece here. Typically you're able to hold this knob and the piece with your left hand. All right, I'll demonstrate this. One thing to keep in mind with the miter gauge is you're never pulling it back. You're pushing it through, you're taking the piece away and pulling it back while it's away from the blade. All right? So, in conclusion, the main thing of table saw safety is keep your hands away from the blade, right? Just because it's a saw stop, we're not going to become complacent with the safety portion of it. Always using a fence or a miter gauge. Any adjustments, we want the saw unplugged. And when you're walking away from the saw, make sure that you're lowering the blade. Right? You bring it all the way under the table. All right, we got any questions? All right.